Welcome to our few moments together on the Parsha. This Shabbos, we have the privilege of reading Parshas Noach. At the very beginning of the Parsha is found one of the great discussions about one word in the Parsha. It says at the beginning that Noach was a tzaddik tamim. He was a complete righteous man, bidoro sov, in his generations. And on that word, in his generations, Rashi quotes a controversy that arises in the Gemara in Sanhedrin of two opinions. One opinion is, Bidoro Sav, Yesh Shedarshin Oso Lishvach. There are Yesh Me Rabosenu, Shedarshin Oso Lishvach. There are those of our rabbis that explain it in a praiseworthy fashion. He was righteous in his wicked generation. Had he been living in a righteous generation, he would have been even greater. Imagine, he was able to resist all the evils that surrounded him, and he still was righteous. And then the Yesh Shedarshin Oso Lignai. There are those that explain it in a more negative fashion, that it means in his generation, when no one was good, in comparison, he was considered righteous. Had he lived in the generation of Avraham Avinu, of our father Abraham, he wouldn't have been considered anything. He would have been so outshined, so outshone by the greatness of Avraham. He would have been maybe just ordinary, or not even that much, who knows. But he wouldn't have been considered a greatly righteous man. So we have the two sides, one that gives him extreme praise, and one that knocks him down a peg. And many ask the question, let's be kind to Noah. He lived amongst the most wicked people on earth. They were so wicked that Hashem had to destroy them all. And yet he was righteous. Let's leave it at that. Why did Hashem insist upon writing the word Bidoro Sov to tell us the possible negative side? What is there to be gained from this? Now, there are many, many answers to this unique dilemma. I'd like to offer you three different explanations. My son-in-law, Rabbi Shari Yablonsky, offers the following explanation. He says, if someone's living in a generation where there are many, many levels of goodness, you have a choice to make as to which level you want to strive for. You can still be a good person and not be the absolute best person. But when you're living in a society that's corrupt from the ground up, the only way to preserve your moral clarity and sanity is to make a choice to be the opposite and to be righteous. Noach lived amongst extremely wicked people. There was no middle ground. It was either he choose righteousness or he would be sucked in. There was no middle ground. If he would have chosen the middle ground, he would have been drawn in just by his connection with the closeness of even considering the moral depravity of the other people as being somewhat acceptable, because he wasn't taking a stance. And so he had to go to the other extreme to become a righteous person. While Avraham Avinu, in his time, there were many levels of decent people. In fact, Avraham himself brought many Jews, many non-Jews, closer to the belief in God, which of course Noach did not succeed in doing with even one, which is another distinction between them. But Avraham Avinu chose extreme righteousness when it wasn't a stark choice. It was something that he decided to do because it was right to do. And he went way beyond the level of Noach in the sense that he didn't just make himself different from everybody else who was wicked, but even made himself different from the other members of the nations of the world at the time that were righteous. That's explanation number one. My personal explanation is the explanation that, the Torah is giving us this contrast because it's telling us you can be like Noach. Be disparate, different from the Hamon Am, from the rest of the majority of the nations of the world, which are without a moral clarity. But the Torah didn't just want a little bit better. The Torah didn't just want from the Jewish people that they should be somewhat different. They wanted the Torah, Hashem wanted to give us an example of someone who wasn't just better than the lowest common denominator. He wanted us to strive to be like Avraham Avinu, which was an extremely exalted position, way above the simple righteousness of Noach, and to achieve the highest moral level of faith in God and observance that was represented by Avraham Avinu's total emunah, total faith and trust in God. And the third answer is one that was told to me again by my son-in-law, Rabbi Shari Yablonsky, who quoted a Rebbe in his yeshiva, Rabbi Shmuel Goldstein, who offered the following explanation. Noach was a completely righteous man in his generation. Avraham was, of course, as we pointed out, so much different that he was willing to exert himself to try to save others. Noach was unable to influence anyone, while Avraham, it says about him, the souls that they made in Choran. We're talking here about nation building. We're talking about building a nation in the world that's going to stand out as being uniquely righteous and uniquely capable of setting a standard that the entire world can plug into. Noach did not fit that bill. He was righteous and he was good. But you can't build a nation on someone who's only got that goodness turned inward instead of outward. While Avraham Avinu was not only completely righteous, he was someone who brought it to the rest of the world, who opened his tent on four sides to welcome people, who taught them and gave them the opportunity to recognize the uniqueness of the one and only God. That's nation building. Noach did not build the Jewish nation. Avraham built the Jewish nation. If we want to be involved in nation building, we've got to go way beyond just being a little more righteous than the corrupt society. We've got to become someone who stands out like Avraham Avinu. And that is why there is that comparison. And it lets us know that we can strive to be the absolute best. That's the nation of Israel. That's the children of Avraham. Do we live up to that promise? Can we actually be that great nation that brings the rest of the world to a clarity of righteousness and morality? That's our mission. Hopefully we'll be able to fulfill it. Have a wonderful Shabbos.